Hello, everyone. Please note that this session is going to be recorded to be shared with the registrations who couldn't join us live. So, yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. On behalf of BIS Research, I'd like to welcome you all to our Green Hydrogen and Green Fuels webinar. This is Komal, Research Analyst in Advanced Materials and Chemicals at BIS Research, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. BIS Research is a leading market intelligence advisory and research company that focuses on emerging technologies trends that are likely to disrupt the dynamics of the market. The mission is to harness the potential of disruptive technologies to make the business thrive in today's digital age. For today's webinar, we have a steamed list of speakers. Firstly, we have Mr. Ómar Sigurbjörnsson. Omar joined Carbon Recycling International in 2009 as a research scientist, and currently he is the director of sales and marketing and is responsible for e-methanol sales as well as the development of commercial projects based on company's ETL technology platform. Next, we have Dr. Christopher Papile and Mr. Sidney Lobo from Catalyte. Christopher was the head of Thyssen Global and was responsible for overseeing alkaline electrolyzers, e-ammonia and e-methanol, sustainable PVC and e-fuels. Today he leads Catalyte for OEM and EPC for unique ammonia and methanol co-production. Mr. Sidney Lobo is a consultant for Catalyte and has experience of around 25 years in the field of sustainability, clean energy, and environmental management. Next, we have with us the BIS representative, Mr. Kaustubh Kamble, Senior Research Analyst in Advanced Materials and Chemicals at BIS Research. He is responsible for researching, analyzing, and presenting the market developments and technologies in chemicals and materials domain. I thank all the panelists for their gracious presence. So let's discuss the agenda for today. So we will start by highlighting the needs for green fuels, emerging technologies, and the factors that are driving green technologies, followed by the trends and opportunities of green hydrogen market and green methanol market. For the next 40 minutes, we are all keen to learn from your experience. And towards the end of the webinar, I will open the panel to the audience for the questions. I'll request all the listeners to just check the Q&A section just below the reaction feature, and you can type in the questions there. I request all the listeners to kindly mute your phone during the webinar and type in the question towards the end of the webinar. And in case we are not able to answer any questions, shall be reverted through email or via blog post. So now let me open the panel for discussion and invite thoughts from Mr. Kaustubh Kamble. So Kaustubh, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Komal, for such a thoughtful introduction. I would like to warmly welcome the audience and our esteemed speakers. Thank you for your valuable presence and your time. So, talking about the green fuels and sustainability of economy, today the global economy is heavily invested and dependent on fossil fuels. And over 80% of our energy is still coming from oil, gas, and coal. The world population continues to grow, our energy consumption will increase, and as the supply of fossil fuels diminishes, the price will comprehensively rise. Eventually, harvesting fossil fuels will become economically impracticable. However, instead of investing in more efficient way to extract the fossil fuels, eventually we will need to break away from our reliance on fossil fuels and being relying on alternative ways to generate the clean energy sources. The geopolitical issues such as Russia and Ukraine war, the trade war between the US and China and others showing that it is high time to limit our dependency on the fossil fuels. The industry participants and governments are continuously looking forward to minimize the dependency on fossil fuels and developing the new technologies. Some of these technologies which are trending and largely appreciated by the businesses are green hydrogen, green methanol, green ammonia, biofuels, and other renewables. Further, these projects are viable and already in a phase of commercialization. Commercialization of these technologies enable businesses to offer such high-tech solutions at reasonable prices to the end users. I'm happy and honored to inform you that one of our key speakers, Mr. Omar, is from Carbon Recycling International, the company which is recently commercialized its production of green methanol from CO2. Further, BIS Research has performed in-depth study on these markets and launch different market reports on our websites. You can visit our website for more information related to these topics. Next slide, please. So looking towards to achieve the decarbonization of and as per the Paris Agreement, stringent emission laws targets are set by the several regions and the countries, such as the US has targeted 50 to 52% of greenhouse gas emission cut below 2005 level. Similarly, European Union has target of 55% emission cut below 1990 level, and many other countries as you can check on the slide. To track down the process of each country and the regions, the World Economic Forum and the MIT Technology Review Insights has published Green Future Index Country Ranking 2022, where 76 countries are divided in four categories. First one is the green ladders, second one is the greening middle, third one is the climate laggers, and fourth one is the climate abstainers. Green leaders and the greening middle are the one which are in the adoption, which are highly active in adoption of the green fuels. However, climate laggers and the climate abstainers are the one which require to heavily invest in these markets. So next slide, please. The International Energy Agency has estimated annual average capital investment required for key sectors and technologies to reach net zero CO2 emissions by 2050. In this, as we can see, the transport, electricity, infrastructure, and building are the key sectors which require major investments. Further, transport is seen like lagging till 2020 in the investment. However, till 2050, we can see it is one of the major sector which will invest in the green fuels. Further, looking towards the technology point of view, CCUS and the hydrogen are the two technologies which are interested and which are heavily investing in these sectors. So talking about these markets and these emerging trends. Next slide, please. So yeah, the green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is produced by splitting water by electrolysis, and the energy used for electrolysis is the green energy. As you can see in the slides, we have tracked down different business growth factors, business opportunities, and business challenges. And as the darker the circle, it will show that it's high the impact. So looking towards the several components of hydrogen value chain have already been employed on small scale and need minimal efforts to commercialize it. Since 2010, the capital cost of electrolysis has decreased and expected to decrease further. Many methods are being tried to further reduce the prices and stimulates the wide adoption of hydrogen. Further, the cost of fuel cells for automobiles has dropped by almost 70% since 2005-6. The cost reduction is mostly due to the decrease of hydrogen storage cost and fuel cell system cost reduction. The scaling up of green hydrogen techniques is expected to be the major driver in development scenario for the market. Looking towards some of the challenges, the green hydrogen generated with electricity obtained from an average variable renewable energy plant, which is approximately 2 to 3 times more expensive than the gray hydrogen. However, with development of technology, we see that the cost of production will decrease drastically. In terms of hydrogen market by the technology trends, PEM and the alkaline electrolyzer are the two technologies which actively involved in the market. The PEM is one of the most compact and simple system design. It offers several advantages such as high current density, fast response, high efficiency, among others, but they are susceptible to the water contaminants such as iron, copper, chromium, and others. This technology is mainly used in petrochemical applications as well as the energy storage. Next slide. As we are the deep tech technology firm, the BIS research is in a phase to launch our updated version of green hydrogen in upcoming years. You can visit our websites for the more details. In this slide represents some of the latest investments in the industry and the key players which are operating in the industry. We have profiled all these players of key industry players in our report. Some of these are Air Liquid, Green Hydrogen System, uh, Plug, and others. Talking about the energy farm. Next slide, please, Kumar. Hello. Next slide, please, Kumar. So talking about the different trends, green methanol. Green methanol is a low carbon fuel that can be made either from the biomass gasification or renewable electricity and capture carbon dioxide. Green methanol methanol remains in a liquid state at atmospheric temperature and pressure. Hence, the infrastructure required to deploy it as a fuel is already available in places such as combustion engines, fuel cells, power blocks, and others, and can easily be affordably used as a methanol for the fuel. While compared to the conventional fuels, methanol decreases emission of carbon dioxide by around 95%, reduces nitrogen oxide emission up to 80%, and eliminates sulfur oxide. As you have seen, BIS research has estimated that the green methanol market expected to reach around USD 3.15 billion by 2031, with a CAGR of around 40%. Also, next slide, please. The BIS research has already launched an analysis on the green methanol market. You can visit BIS website and download the sample copies of this report for the detailed information. This slide, can you show next slide, please, Komal?
Yeah, Kaustubh, can you see the screen now?
No, it's not visible. It's stuck. So moving towards the next, I'm not going to take too much of your times, as innovation and the research and the sales are the only two functions that generates the revenue for the businesses, and rest other is the cost. I'm happy that we have key speakers that are the part of these two functions. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Omar for presenting his thoughts on the green economy. Over to you, Mr. Omar. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today and tell you a little bit about what it is that we have been doing and our views on the methanol market. So I will try to share the presentation from my side. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So so the picture you can see there is of the plant here in Iceland. This is called the George Ola methanol plant, and it was built 10 years ago. And the company that I represent is a privately owned company based in Iceland that have been pioneers in the space of e-methanol or methanol from carbon dioxide production. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history and then moving on to our views on the green fuel market and how methanol fits in there. So the process that I mentioned is the direct hydrogenation of CO2 to form methanol. We call this process the emissions to liquids, or ETL process for short. And it can work with any source of CO2 and hydrogen. But of course, we are looking at hydrogen sources that are from low carbon emissions, so either generated from renewable electricity or recovers from waste or byproduct gases from industry, and then looking at CO2 sources that are unavoidable today, from industrial point sources mainly, but in the future, various other sources. And methanol is something that is a globally traded commodity. It's used as a traditional chemical feedstock for various products, and also increasingly as a fuel. So our history dates back all the way back to 2006, when the company was founded here in Iceland by two Icelanders and two Americans, with the ambition to develop a process that would utilize CO2 as a raw material in the production of value-added chemical, and the process that was developed is the process to make methanol. And after demonstrating that initially at a pilot scale, the company invested in a demonstration plant in Iceland that was commissioned in 2012, 10 years ago. And this is based on the use of geothermal energy and geothermally occurring CO2 that comes from the underground. So in this case, we had the capacity to first make 1,300 tons per year, and later expanded to 4,000 tons per year. And this was the first of its kind demonstration plant using recycled CO2 from an industrial source to make a fuel and chemical. And this plant was operated for a number of years, supplying methanol to customers in Europe, using it for blending into gasoline, biodiesel manufacturing, wastewater treatment, and other applications. In the years after that, we were involved in demonstration and development projects funded by the European Union Horizon 2020 program in Germany and Sweden, where we showed that the technology can be flexible and adaptable to low changes in energy, for example, from wind sources, and also utilizing various different sources of carbon dioxide and waste gases, including from blast furnace gas in the north of Sweden. And since then, we have been focused on commercializing the technology, and we have announced two projects that are in China, from coke oven gas and also from propane dehydrogenation. And the first of its kind plant at the scale of 100,000 tons per year has now entered production. And the second one is slated to start up production at the end of next year. And furthermore, we are also developing scale-up of e-methanol production in a project in the north of Norway. So we see a large increase in the demand for this technology and the product green methanol. Here you can see the picture of the first plant that was coming online last month. And this is sort of a stepping stone and validation of the scale up of the technology. So now it is already at a sizable scale and ready for deployment in other sectors. So if we take a step back here and we think about this concept of green fuels or synthetic fuels, a term that has emerged in recent years is the term e-fuels or electrofuels, meaning that the primary source of energy is derived from electricity, renewable electricity, and through a process of electrolysis and hydrogen production, the energy is converted into different forms and or upgraded into other derivatives such as nitrogen based compounds like ammonia, or then carbon-based compounds like methane or methanol and its derivatives. So in this picture, I'm showing here different pathways for making e-fuels, and many of them are actively being developed, deployed, and also applicable to different industry. So in the picture, I'm also showing that methanol is a pathway to other derivatives such as gasoline and jet fuel. And the advantages that methanol has is that it is a liquid fuel at ambient conditions. So here's further to follow up with the introduction about the expected growth in the hydrogen market. So green hydrogen is expected to grow in the next 10 years or so. And this growth must be supported by a solution to store and transport and utilize hydrogen. So all this hydrogen that is expected to come online needs to find a pathway into the market. So on the right side here is a comparison table to show some of the physical properties and other attributes that methanol has in comparisons to hydrogen and ammonia. One of the key ones is the physical nature, that it is a liquid at ambient condition. It needs less tank volume to store it compared to gas oil. And critically, there are now multiple vendors of engines and capable designers and construct vessels that can run on methanol. So these things are culminating in the fact that there are increased interest in green methanol, and there is a low entry barrier for the methanol, for green methanol or sustainable methanol into the market. It can be produced on an industrial scale using CO2 and hydrogen, or as well it can be produced from biogenic materials and biomass. It is a key input in industrial chemicals and consumer products, and it's versatile for different application in the fuel sector, internal combustion engines, hybrid systems, and fuel cells. And it's an excellent carrier of hydrogen, so it can be used to regenerate hydrogen in places where that is required. And as I mentioned earlier, it is a pathway to produce sustainable aviation fuel that is emerging now with developments by players in the market. So there are no inherent technical challenges to scaling this up, and the existing infrastructure can be modified and is inexpensive to change to work with methanol. So in short, it's a clean burning fuel that is biodegradable and sustainable. If I look at here, on the left side is a quote to UK Research and Innovation report from last year that states the methanol is a key tool to achieve global net zero targets. And on the right, there is a number of different applications where methanol has as a use in terms of fuel, but also materials, plastics, and other applications. And one of those projects that I mentioned of a size of 100,000 tons per year can achieve a CO2 avoidance over its lifetime of 20 years of over 8 million tons compared to conventional sources that are currently being used. So today, the demand for methanol has been increasing steadily, and largely now the biggest market is in China, about 59%, and then the rest of the market is distributed between Europe, other Asian countries, North America, and various other industrial user base. And today, coal is one of the largest source, and natural gas is in most other places around the world except China the predominant feedstock. So today the fossil methanol market is approaching 100 million tons of methanol production per year, but in the projection is that the growth the next 2 decades will be predominantly from green or sustainable sources, and the figures that are shown here are from a report by IRENA that estimates that the market for green methanol will grow to a size of about 400 million tons per year by the year 2050, so 4 times the current world market. In particular, I want to highlight developments that have taken place in the maritime sector. Since 2016, over 130 methanol-equipped ships have been announced, and most of them in the last 2 years. And in fact, last month there were more ships that have been ordered for dual fuel applications with methanol compatibility than have been for LNG. So the reason for this is that there are a number of policy instruments that have been put in place that are promoting the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from the maritime industry. For example, the EU Fit for 55 package. And the technology that has been under development is now more mature than ever. So it is available, and it is also possible to classify these ships without much difficulty. Finally, the policies that are in place are also spurring this interest. The recent announcements by the US authorities about incentives for CO2 capture and utilization, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, is providing a tax credit up to $3 per kilogram of hydrogen, and also benefits in terms of tax credits for capture and use of CO2, provided certain criteria are met. There is also in the European Union increasingly the share of what they call renewable fuels of non-biological origin, or which is the equivalent to the e-fuels. They are expected to increase and have a separate sub-target. And the aviation sector is also looking to replace its use. So finally, to summarize, the green methanol is an ideal hydrogen carrier. There is a scalable solution that already fits with existing infrastructure. It is environmentally sound and climate friendly. CRI as a company has extensive experience and now references at scale. And the growth in demand for green methanol is increasing rapidly. And finally, critically from the business is that there already exist profitable projects today, and there will be more so in the future. So thank you for listening, and hope to be able to answer some of your questions later on at the end of the program.
Thank you, Omar, for the insights. Now I'd like Christopher to take the lead. So Christopher, over.
Thank you very much, Ms. Komal. I appreciate your introduction and also the invitation here to speak from Mr. Kaustubh and others at BIS. That was an excellent introduction to green methanol from Mr. Omar. So he did much of my job to talk about green methanol, so I will not repeat what he said. We would like to highlight, first of all, our technology at Catalyte is the co-production of green methanol with ammonia. And here's a highlight of a triple bottom line that gets you. And for example, for the planet, as Mr. Omar pointed out, CO2 reduction, as well as our technology particularly uses less water, less land, and so overall better for the environment. For people, and I think this is a very important point, because we live in a world where we have multiple variables that we have to consider. So we cannot be just focused on one variable. And an important thing is people. We have to care about people, and we have chosen to make green ammonia as a co-product because it has a very versatile uses. It can be used as a fertilizer. It is used as a fertilizer in the United States and other places, and as a precursor to urea, which is a fertilizer in most all countries. And it can be used as a denox agent. It can be used as a hydrogen carrier. So as a hydrogen itself is difficult to transport, but it can be, ammonia gives you that capability. So ammonia we find is a key molecule within this whole superstructure of green fuels. And we put here for people because as a fertilizer, this little graphic shows that without ammonia fertilizer, without the Haber-Bosch process that we have today, we would not be able to feed the world properly, and that's very significant. When it comes to job creation and value creation, ammonia has increased in cost or price in the last 2 years, partly due to the Ukrainian crisis and also having to do with China stopping to export DAP and another urea. So that has brought the price up, and it makes for now a very special opportunity within the green ammonia field. Next slide, please. The slides have gone off the screen from my point of view. So if you click the next slide, please. Thank you. So I just have a graphic here. It's supposed to say copyright Rolls-Royce. I don't see it, but this is Rolls-Royce recently announced hydrogen as an aviation fuel engine. So this is just an overview. I think that Mr. Kaustubh has covered the overview well. But what I would like to bring up from this slide is we are currently in a world where we're all going towards green fuels, green hydrogen, green ammonia, green methanol, and as Mr. Ómar pointed out, the derivatives from green methanol, such as aviation fuels, methanol to gasoline based. And this is something that many have waited for the last 20 years, and finally it has arrived. But it has not arrived totally organically. There has been, for example, the European Union drive with renewable non-biological fuels legislation, the RED II, CBAM, and other things, but it has now given new incentive. And these green fuels and green ways of doing heavy industry have existed for a while. So I'd like to point out that DRI steel is one of the polluters for, if you're counting CO2 as a pollutant, and green steel has been operated by DRI methane, or methane from natural sources, in order to change iron to steel, pig iron. And that has been going on for many decades. So we're only talking about an intensification of certain technologies that have existed. And we need to make our choices based on economic analyses, techno-economic analyses. And that's one of the important points, because, for example, if we want to do any kind of EPC work, when we're doing construction, we need to use, usually diesel to operate trucks and so forth. So, and we see that even in the European Union, where they're very much interested in green fuels, they've commissioned or decided for 5 new floating LPG terminals, or even Mr. Habeck, who is the head of the economy in Germany and the Green Party, has made some choices, which is taking into account the multiple variables of keeping people warm, or things that overall society has to take care of. So let us keep that in mind. Next slide, please. Here is a list of some of the projects happening around the world. This is in Asia, and it's not intended to be a complete list, but it shows you that there's an extensive amount of gigawatts of green ammonia, green hydrogen, green methanol. In places like Australia, there's been announcements of greater than 70 gigawatts. China as well has many multiple gigawatt projects. So we have now gone into a new situation where there's no turning back, so to say. And some of these projects may have decrease in the announcement amount of gigawatts, because a gigawatt project itself is over $1 billion to make green ammonia, and the wind and solar associated with it. So we're talking about a lot of investment here. So we will see in the end how many of these projects get built, but generally there's been a massive compound annual growth rate, greater than 70 gigawatts, greater than 100 gigawatts when you're counting in believing all the announcements. Next slide, please. And then just a little bit about China. at least 275 projects. I mean, by the time I wrote this down, I'm sure many more have already been announced, but it's just generally to say that heavy industry is now what's in vogue, which is very interesting. Those of us who have worked in heavy industry that involves construction and involves chemical plants, there wasn't a lot of building happening. We used to see one mega ammonia project every 3, 4, 5 years. Now we're seeing, a couple a quarter being announced. So this is an amazing new growth happening in this field. So that's important. That's something that all engineers should be paying attention to and trying to get involved with. Next, please. So the U.S. green incentives. This slide is showing that we have incentives in the United States for the electricity you make from geothermal, wind, and solar, as well as hydrogen, as Mr. Omar mentioned, $3,000 per metric ton of hydrogen, which in some cases, what you get from the government is more than what your cost is to make it. So that's a very high level of support. And we have in the United States already for blue hydrogen over 125 projects. And this remains to be seen whether the European Union and others like to include it, blue hydrogen, but it is growing as well. Incentives are important in this field, but we should not undergo demand destruction of hydrocarbons, in my opinion. We need them for many things in terms of construction projects or keeping people warm, or it's good to use methane, as mentioned, for green steel. There's many things that we can do here. Next slide, please. Here's a list of some of the important companies in green ammonia, electrolyzers, and fuel cell electric vehicles. ThyssenKrupp, where I worked previously, is a leader in green ammonia, and others are listed there as well. Catalyte, our company, is listed because we make green ammonia co-produced with methanol, so that it's a CO2 free, because the CO2, the carbon, ends up in the methanol. Electrolyzer companies, the European Union is currently in the lead for electrolyzer companies. They have best intellectual property portfolios for hydrogen and ammonia, but China is quickly doing a lot of very interesting and important research. So we're going to see this is sort of a big competition for the future of energy going on right now. In fuel cell electric vehicles, Nuvera, one of the companies that I co-started, is listed there, and there's many companies, and hydrogen is important for heavy vehicles or vehicles where batteries are not going to be an answer. And I think we're going to see much more strong play for hydrogen-based fuel cell vehicles. Next slide, please. So when everyone says we're taking the new green pathways, we have to keep in mind that all of these technologies require specialty metals, like lithium-ion batteries or batteries in general, or vanadium redox flow batteries, or in PEM fuel cells and electrolyzers, iridium metal or platinum metal. So there's a lot of mining to be done. In mining generally, is what we call mine tailing, where the stuff you didn't want, they sort of throw in a big pool of water, and it's not something environmentalists would be happy about. So we generally, we're talking about responsible behavior, as opposed to one solution always being better than another. We have to talk about what is the responsible behavior. We should responsibly use methane or landfill methane or anaerobic biodigester biogas. This is important to use everything we have in our portfolio, but to use them in a way that is responsible. Next slide, please. Okay, I think I have mentioned the incentives in the USA and in Europe, and Europe is more of a stick, and the US is more of a carrot. these are ways that they're trying to incentivize the change to the green economy, or what we say in Deutschland, the Energiewende, energy transition. Next slide. So and this slide shows that, as I mentioned, ammonia is a fertilizer as well. And this is very, very important. We saw a lot of issues in Sri Lanka. There's a lot of talk about having fertilizers which are completely natural, and that's something that we're more interested in Catalyte in having a circular economy approach. And a circular economy approach would still enable fertilizer, and because fertilizer is needed to feed the world, it's now become more than 50% of the cost of wheat is from the fertilizer itself, based on my back of envelope calculation. And ammonia is key to that, whether you're making it urea or green ammonia. So that's important. Feed the world, try to do good. Next slide, please. So this is the final slide that kind of summarizes what I wanted to say today. First of all, Catalyte makes green ammonia with methanol co-produced, and that's a new technology out there, and anyone who would like to contact us, we're interested to talk. But we also wanted to bring the bigger picture to the BIS discussion today, and that bigger picture is that we're not believers in demand destruction of hydrocarbon. We believe everything has its place in our ecosystem of the energy world, and we see that green fuels have been increasing, and green steel and green concrete and green aluminum, all these have been increasing, and they will continue to increase, and that's great as part of the mix. And I think overall we need to take a responsible approach, because we need to be responsible for all the citizens of the world. So thank you very much for your attention. That's my talk for today.
Thank you, Christopher, for discussing it so illustratively. Now I'd like Sydney to take the lead. So over to you, Sydney. Sydney, we cannot hear you. Can you please unmute yourself?
Sorry about that. I suppose now you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so I don't have any slides per se, so I'm just going to speak freely on this topic. And I just want to take one step backwards. Why are we doing all this? Basically, it's to decarbonize the industrial space, or, it's basically for decarbonization, because it's having an impact on the climate, and it's just been going down. Now, although, there are many technologies. I mean, Omar mentioned about the methanol technology. Chris mentioned about ammonia. Now, of course, the only one missing here is someone who can talk about carbon capture. Now, yes, we can, there are all these technologies available, but there needs to be, what I feel is there needs to be an overarching plan which stitches these technologies together. Not only to in terms of how it's made, and also to where it's ultimately going to be used. Okay, I mean, now world over, everyone is saying we'll make so much green hydrogen, and we'll set up green hydrogen plants in India. Of course, the Ministry of Power has issued a policy, but then who's going to be the end user for that? So, I mean, the entire, if I may use the term of cradle to grave approach, is somewhere which is still missing, or it's not seen. For example, I mean, of course, hydrogen plays a very key role in the industry. It will play a very key role in the heavy automotive space, in the trucks, or cargo. It will play a very heavy role over there, but it needs to be defined, and it needs to be put in place by the authorities to say that, okay, by 2030, all heavy vehicles will be on, either they could run on methanol, or they could run on a fuel cell based system, because they just can't run on batteries, because they'll be carrying more dead load of the battery than the cargo that they're supposed to carry. So obviously, when you look at the levelized cost of the transport, it's going to be more expensive, and that doesn't make sense. So that's what, those are the kind of aspects which need to be stitched together. Even, I mean, we heard Omar that okay, they're ready with methanol. Now if world over they say that okay, the IC engine will move to utilizing 100% methanol as a fuel, there would be some innovation that would be required, where the automotive industry has to work in order to be ready to take 100% methanol by 2030. So these things, this entire so-called jigsaw puzzle has to be put in place at an overarching level, so that everyone, because this has to be a collaborative effort. It cannot be an individual effort. So everyone has to put themselves together in order to achieve the so-called ultimate goal of decarbonization. Yes, I mean, in India, we have started, or rather the ethanol market has opened up. I mean, the government has opened up the ethanol space, wherein there are some plants who are now working on broken rice and things like that to make ethanol, besides the sugarcane path, uh, which has been in practice for so many amount of years. But all that needs to be clearly defined as to where it all goes. So that's where I'm saying is that we need that overarching plan. Now, Chris mentioned that there are incentives. Now, incentives should be just to kickstart. In the long term, incentives will not work, because then it puts a strain on the other parts of the economy. So if you have a time frame, or if a time frame is defined for each of these sectors, or each of these spaces, for each of these technologies to come at par to maybe not what they are today, because obviously there'll be some inflation and things like that. But if the cost of fuel is at par, then those incentives also will not be required. And for that, there has to be volumes. For that, there has to be a clear-cut definition of who's going to be the end user. So this stitching, now, I don't know who's going to do that stitching, whether it's the government who does the stitching, or whether it is the research institutes who do the stitching and put it up, so that someone thinks about it and then puts this entire jigsaw puzzle into place, so that all the technologies that have been developed, that are in working maybe in stealth mode, or they are ready for commercialization, can get to a stage where there is nothing called as a hard to abate segment. Each one will have something where they have to do. Each one will have a certain fuel, which is a cleaner fuel. It could be liquid or it could be gas. And that's how we will ultimately achieve the overarching so-called goal of decarbonization. That's all of what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lobo, for such an informative session. I would like to inform that the BIS research has also published the report on carbon capture utilization and storage market recently. As the sum of all rising awareness about the new technology developments, and commercialization of green fuels, as the market of the green fuels expected to phenomenally rise in the upcoming years. The companies such as Carbon Recycling International, BASF, Catalyte, OCI, and others are expected to lead the green economy market with the new developments and the projects. As we are moving towards the end of the webinar, the takeaways from the sessions are the net zero strategy by the several economies, need for people and expertise, evolving end users regarding the applications of the new eras, and others. Further, the BIS is in upfront of tracking every possible sustainable projects and share the insights with wide range of industry participants. To discuss the research product plan and recently launched titles by the BIS research, I would like to invite Komal. Over to you, Komal. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaustubh. Yeah. So as you can see on screen, A lot of our research studies are focused on green technologies such as green hydrogen, green ammonia, and green construction materials and services market, and also some sustainable films for packaging market, sustainable air filters market, and so on. And some of our upcoming reports, such as green technology and sustainability market and bio-based plastic markets, green steel markets. So these are already in publishing phase. So in case anyone is interested in seeing the sample of the market intelligence report of any of these topics, you may ping in the chat and our team will reach out to you soon. So now to discuss about the platform that we have, the AI-based platform, I'd like Kaustubh to take this up. So over to you, Kaustubh.
Thank you, Komal. We at BIS Research are developing what we are calling a deep tech technology knowledge platform, where we are trying to integrate with industry experts from different markets, from different industries, from different regions to come together on a one platform where they can network with each other, ask questions, and answer the questions free of cost. We also will be there. Our colleague Ahmed will put the link here as we speak on this chart, and you can go and log in by yourself. This is all about free, and you will be able to be a part of industry experts. And if you have any questions related to what you are trying to do, what could be the market intelligence, and could be anything, you can post those questions for free, and you can get multiple answers. It's more of an expert-oriented knowledge sharing session platform. That's what our vision for the Insight Month. And as Komal has said, it's an AI-based platform. So along with this question and answer solutions, several research articles are collated from different reliable sources. You get a lot of different researches. So as someone does for you, on back of you, and will provide you the solutions. Once again, once you will register on it, our sales colleague will reach out to you for the next processes. So thank you. Over to you, Komal.
Thank you, Kaustubh, for the details. Now, let's conclude the session, and I request all the listeners to type in the questions, and I'll be happy to pass it to the esteemed speakers. So, listeners, please type in the question in the Q&A section just beside the reaction feature. Okay, we have our first question from Mahesh Gupta. So the question is, which electrolyzer technology is better and economical, whether PM or alkaline? Do you think that developers need some subsidy or production-based incentives for green hydrogen and related applications like green ammonia, steel, methanol, fertilizers? Like US came with IRA Act up to $3 per kg for matching the parity with the other alternative fuels. So speakers, anyone who wants to take this up?
Hi, here's Christopher. So we have electrolyzer technologies which are good for particular applications. And alkaline electrolyzers are very good for mega projects. And we're going to continue to see them leading the way with that. I see the next question is going to be about AEM, so I don't want to take away the second answer. But let us say AEM is going to be very important, and it's still in the early stages. It's going to allow a higher current density and higher efficiency. It's going to rival what you can do with PEM. So AEM I see as quickly growing, but it's still going to take another 4 years or so before it starts to win important market share. Solid oxide electrolyzers, they can be having greater than 95% efficiency when they use some waste heat. So that means you can team them or pair them with a nuclear power plant or green steel, any place where you have some waste heat, let us say about 600 Celsius, it's going to help you get to the very high efficiencies. So, but solid oxide, people say, is going to not really crack even 5% of the overall electrolyzer market, even by 2035, 2040. That's debatable, of course, but those are some general ideas. PEM is a darling for most, and maybe someone else can jump in and speak for PEM, so I don't take more than my time. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Christopher. So, okay, moving on to the next question. And the next question is, when you have mentioned that Rolls-Royce recently tested hydrogen-based aircraft, is it in liquid or gaseous form? So, speakers?
I don't know if any of the other speakers know about this. I was the one who brought up the photograph of the Rolls-Royce, so I'm going to have to ask the questioner to go to the original story, because I don't want to take the chance of speaking for Rolls-Royce and making a mistake. But what I can say is that we say sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. There's many types of SAF, and hydrogen, compressed hydrogen, liquid hydrogen are two options, and as well as Fischer-Tropsch based fuels, which are used for aviation, but they start from carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. They start from a point where it's going to be a green fuel, but it's going to be made to look like a conventional fuel. And Fischer-Tropsch already allowed for aviation fuels. And then there is methanol to gasoline technology, which I don't think is yet within the regulations approved. But these fuels have advantage that they already used in airports. So liquid hydrogen is not currently used in airports. So I think we're going to continue to see a strong push towards either methanol to gasoline or Fischer-Tropsch based green aviation fuels.
Yeah, I think continuing to what Christopher mentioned, I mean, to compress hydrogen to a liquid state requires a lot of energy. So ultimately, when you look at the cost of that energy, it will, I mean, you'll be consuming so much amount of energy to put it into a liquefied state that I think these guys will have to look at some other option in order to have the hydrogen in a liquid form. Or maybe even as methanol to kind of, then use the hydrogen to fire up in the engine. So it'll all come to cost economics at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you, Christopher and Sydney. And we have our next question for Omar. So the question is, green methanol is majorly used as a fuel. What would be the emerging application areas of green methanol in the upcoming years?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned in my talk, the application using methanol in marine is the fastest growing at the moment. And the other topic which we just touched upon is the use of methanol to produce kerosene or jet fuel. That's not yet, let's say, commercial, but large players like ExxonMobil have announced that they are offering that or developing that. So the other, let's say, further along, but maybe not so far along, is using methanol as a material for the microbial synthesis of proteins in the fermenter tanks. So essentially turning methanol into a feedstock for making protein to replace animal protein. In for example, dairy products or others. So this is a trend that I think will continue to accelerate, and it also has a large implications in terms of sustainability. So yeah, those are and of course many other different methanol derivatives in the chemical side that we don't have time to go into at the moment.
Perfect. So I believe since we are running out of time, so any unanswered question will be answered with the help of speakers and research analysts, and we'll answer these questions and send it across via email or by a blog post. So let's conclude this session on a good note, and hoping that someday we'll see a very sustainable future. So thank you everyone for attending the webinar, and thank you very much speakers. It was really insightful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Kamal,
Okay.
Mr. Kaustubh.
Thank you, Dr. Christopher. Thank you, Mr. Lobo. Thank you, Omar.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Omar. Thanks, Sydney.
Bye.